Is it worth upgrading your car's air intake system? Should you get a new OEM panel filter, performance panel filter, or full induction kit? Let's get into it. There are loads of videos out there on YouTube looking at the performance benefits of each of the upgrade options for a car's intake system. But these results are very specific to the car being tested, so if you have a different car, you may be none the wiser as to whether to upgrade your air intake system or not. In this video, I'll come up with 4 universal checks that you should do on your own car to determine the type of air intake upgrade you should go with. The first item to check is whether or not you have a turbo or supercharger. Now, why does it matter if you have a turbo or not? So, the point of upgrading the air filter system is to reduce the pressure loss in the intake system, thus allowing for more air to enter your engine and therefore produce more power and be more efficient. If you have a turbocharged engine, the pressure loss within the air intake system is exaggerated. For example, if we have a naturally aspirated engine with a 0.1 bar pressure loss in the intake system, we would get air at 0.9 bar into the actual engine cylinders. This is 0.1 bar lower than the ideal conditions, i.e. if we take ideal as ambient air at 1 bar. Now, if we have a turbocharged engine with a turbocharger with a pressure ratio of 2.4, as in this, the Alfa Mito QV, a pressure loss of 0.1 bar would result in air at 2.16 bar into the actual engine cylinders at full boost. This is 0.24 bar lower than ideal conditions. So from this, we know that pressure losses scale with boost capability of turbos. Based on this, we can say that if you have a high boost turbocharger, you should definitely upgrade your intake system as you will experience more gains than if you had a naturally aspirated vehicle. Now, if you have a naturally aspirated engine, it is still probably worth upgrading, but don't be expecting massive performance gains. The second item to check is the efficiency of the air intake piping in your car. As you can imagine, lots of twists and turns in the air's journey to the engine will cause small pressure drops, which means less air will actually be inducted into the engine cylinders, causing less power to be produced. Now, the key things to look for when assessing your own car's piping layout are the length of piping, the number of turns, and the direction of the piping. If we look at this, the Alfa Romeo Mito QV's piping layout, we can see that the piping is actually rather long. It also has many twists and turns. What's more, the piping layout tries to force the air against gravity, which will evidently reduce airflow. So based on this, I would definitely say that this car needs a performance panel filter or a full induction kit, rather than just an OEM filter, as this should hopefully negate the inefficiency of the piping layout. The third item to check for is the position of the air intake system's opening. This aspect will decide whether or not you would be best getting a performance panel filter or a full induction kit. Now, if your intake opening is very restrictive and isn't really being fed with too much fresh air, this will cause the air being inputted into the intake system to be below the ambient pressure of 1 bar, thus reducing the amount of air inducted into the intake system, and therefore the engine. Here are 2 images. The left shows the intake opening for this, the Alfa Romeo Mito QV, whilst the right shows the intake for an NC Mazda MX-5. It is clear that the Mito's intake opening is very restrictive, as it is small in overall size and is really close to a wall. This means it is not being fed by fresh air outside of the engine bay. Therefore, the intake air will be warmer and the pressure of the inducted air is likely to be less than ambient due to this restrictive opening. Compare this to the MX-5s, which is being fed directly by a large duct outside of the car. It is clear that the air can get into the intake system much more easily here. If your car exhibits a restrictive opening similar to the Mito QVs, a full induction kit is recommended, since this will entirely eliminate the restrictive intake opening, allowing for fewer pressure drops and therefore more power. If your car is similar to the MX-5 with a fairly clear opening, I would stick to a panel filter, as gains from a full induction kit are likely to be small, since the OEM air intake is not too restrictive. final item to check is entirely subjective. Do you like induction noise? If the answer to this question is no, it is easy. Don't go for a full induction kit, as you'll probably hate the sound. If the answer to the question is yes, go for the upgrade most suited to your specific car based on the previous 3 items. And that's it. I believe if you use these 4 checks, you should be able to get the most cost-effective upgrade for your specific car. Thanks for watching, and please leave any questions or comments below.